Sports. I have had a few of you tell me politely to shut the hell up, get to the point, so that's what we're going to do. Today, I'm going to be focusing on one pick and then one lean that could be a pick later on. So first with the pick, we have the Ravens at the Raiders. I have alluded to this before in a couple other videos. I'm going to give you the pick right up front. I am picking the Ravens minus 4.5 for week 1. A few items on the reasoning list here. So first of all, the Ravens had a little bit of a tougher season than we expected in 2020, but the biggest reason for that was their offensive line just did not look good, and it really took a hit when Ronnie Stanley, who was their left tackle, tore his ACL. And I remember watching that game and actually betting against them live once I saw them go down, and of course they ended up losing that game. That being said, though, they obviously do get him back this year. He is going to be their starting left tackle. They also have Kevin Zeitler and Alejandro Villanueva, who's coming from Steelers, as their right tackle and their right guard. So their right side should be shored up. Their left tackle's back. It's good news for Lamar as well as for J.K. Dobbins. So we have a lot of good things working on that front. Last year they ended up as 17th in offensive line health, so about average, a little just right below that. So this upgrade and kind of getting everybody back healthy should be a really big increase in efficiency as far as their offense is concerned, because they not only can run the ball, which is really what they want to do with Dobbins and then Lamar getting a little bit more time back there, but they should be able to effectively pressure defenses with more of a long ball threat. Now, I know a lot of us don't think Lamar Jackson is a great passer, but the fact that he has 4 or 5 seconds to just look down the field makes a huge difference, and it makes the defense have to kind of play back a little bit. On the Raiders side, though, so the Raiders actually have only had one winning season since 2003, which is just god-awful. I think they're the only team that's done that. The Raiders do run 45% of the time, or at least they did in 2020, and they were about the same in 2019. The Ravens are actually the 8th best team at rushing defensive efficiency, meaning they are the 8th best team at stopping the rushing attack. So the Raiders are going to be essentially running right into the teeth of the Ravens defense, and I don't think Gruden is going to alter his game plan enough to kind of counteract that. Even with all offseason to prepare, I don't see him making a huge change. Alex Leatherwood was one of their draft picks this year. He was actually out of Alabama. He's a right tackle, and he will be their starting right tackle as long as he's healthy. And that guy is a beast of a human being. If you haven't seen him, Google Alex Leatherwood. That dude is huge. He makes linemen look tiny. He does profile as an elite right tackle any way you look at it. Richie Incognito is coming back after tearing his Achilles last year. So good news for Josh Jacobs. Yes, it is good news for Derek Carr as well. He doesn't like to really push the ball down the field. He does like targeting guys like Darren Waller and kind of sticking more to his tight ends and keeping the passes short. So a great offensive line is awesome, but if you're not going to really wait, more than 2 or 3 seconds anyways, it's not as big of a factor. They also lost Nelson Aguilar, which is not huge, I guess, unless you really love Nelson Aguilar, but it's not helping any. Derek Carr struggles in the pass game when you make him move around. So just strictly going off percentages here, when he's planted in a clean pocket, he has a 57% success rate. When he's shuffling around the pocket and you're kind of making him, at least move his feet a little bit, that drops all the way down to 43%. And when he is moving, like he's literally on the run and moving, it drops even further down to 41% success rate, which, as far as I know, is like the second or third worst in the NFL. I think the only person who had numbers that were that bad or worse was Baker Mayfield, and he's looking a little bit better because his offensive line's better, but that's besides the point. That being said, though, the Ravens were actually the number 1 blitz-heavy team last year, coming in at about a 43% blitz rate, and I think that's going to continue. Their defense looks relatively the same, the Ravens that is, so I don't see why they would start shying away from the blitz now. That's really going to help them out, and especially when you're looking at Harbaugh, a guy who loves preparing for this first game, and he takes advantage of the whole offseason, he's going to see the same numbers that I'm seeing. He's going to dial up a bunch of blitzes, and if you didn't think that, maybe that the offensive line on the Raiders is better, and maybe he won't try to blitz so much, we have another stat to back that up. They are they, being the Raiders, are terrible against man defense. They only had a 45% success rate when they played against the man defense last year. That's not going to get any better this year when you're missing Nelson Aguilar. That's just, it's not good. If you can't convert at least one out of every two passes, even with somebody kind of pushing you around a little bit, it's going to be a long day. And the Ravens are going to dial up a heavy blitz in week one. They're going to have all sorts of different stunts and actions, and they're going to find a way to make Derek Carr move. The Raiders also lost 66% of their games last year when they played against a heavy blitzing team. They actually played 6 teams that blitzed 30% of the time or more, and they went 2-4 in those games. As far as the opener, which is one stat I really like to look at, because while the team may change and your players may change and certain things may go back and forth, coaching is going to stay pretty consistent. And Gruden has been the coach since 2017. I'm going to compare his first game openers with John Harbaugh from the Ravens, also from 2017. So in 2020, last year, Raiders won by 4 points over the Panthers, who would go on to be 5-11. And that was the first game with Teddy Bridgewater, and the first game with a new coach last year for the Panthers. And the Raiders barely squeaked out that 4-point win. Ravens, on the other hand, went on to win 32 points over the Browns. The Browns eventually finished 11-5, and if you remember, actually pushed the Chiefs in their playoff game. 2019, the Raiders had an 8-point win over the Broncos. They barely squeaked that one out too by one possession win, and the Broncos did go on to win 7 games, so they finished 7-9. So that was okay. 9 is impressive. The Ravens did win by 49 points in their home opener that year. That was against the Dolphins, with Joe Flacco as the quarterback for the Broncos with the Raiders that year. The Ravens obviously just manhandled the Dolphins that year, but that was the year the Dolphins were just god-awful and started to kind of turn it at the end of the season that year. 2018, Raiders actually lost by 20 points to the Rams with Jared Goff. That was the year the Rams went 13-3, and the 20-point loss seems terrible. But the Rams are really, really good that year. I mean, they're still good, but what sticks out to me is this is the first, in the 3 years we've covered, this is the only time that they actually played somebody who ended up having like a really good season and a winning season. And the Rams just demolished them. And that's with the Rams kind of taking their foot off the pedal at the end of the game. The Ravens that year started off with a win over the Bills, and that was Josh Allen's first year. And the Ravens won by 44 points that week. So huge difference. And then one more year, which 2017, the first year that Gruden was with the Raiders did come out, have a win by 10 points over the Titans, and that was over Marcus Mariota. That's really probably the best win out of the 3 that they had from these 4 openers. The Ravens won by 20 points over the Bengals that year, and the Bengals went 7-9 that year, so that was okay. That being said, though, the Raiders roster in 2017 looked way different, and I know, like I said, the coaching is usually going to, really stay consistent, and again, the players are going to be changing, but as a coach, it's much easier when you have talent on the field that can win and kind of cover up some of your mistakes. So that year they had Michael Crabtree, Amari Cooper, Khalil Mack, and an aged Marshawn Lynch who was able to still put up a decent day that particular day. So while it's their best win, it was also their best team over the last 4 years. And the Ravens have just consistently been blowing teams out of the water. And I don't think the Raiders are going to be up to this, guys. Not week 1. I don't think Gruden's going to make enough changes. He's not going to alter enough things about his offense and how he plays and his defense even to really make a dent against this Ravens team. The Ravens have upgraded their offensive line. They're going to come out ready to go. J.K. Dobbins has another year under his belt. Lamar Jackson has more time. They got Sammy Watkins to kind of give him at least one other out. Mark Andrews is coming back healthy. The Ravens, every which way you think about it, whether it's coach, personnel, health, the Ravens just have these guys outgunned. I don't think it's going to even be a close game. Grab the -4.5. There's no rush on this one. I don't really see that line moving a whole lot. And even if it does, it's really not close to a key number. A lot of times, just for your information, if a line comes out at like -5 or right around there, it's because Vegas themselves or the book doesn't really know which way to go with this game. Not to say they don't kind of have a feel for the winner, but it's more so they don't know if it should be a wide margin or if they think it's more of like a a 3-point margin that needs to get hung up there. And what they do is they'll set the line at like 4.5, 5, 5.5, wait until people come in, lay some money on it, and then they'll quickly move one way or the other. That being said, though, at 4.5, you got quite a ways before it gets to either 3 or even 6. So grab the Ravens, but like I said, you can probably wait on this one until we get closer to the season opening. On that note, let me go to my lean, and this will be a little bit quicker. So this is going to be the Packers versus the Saints, and I am leaning the Packers right now. So as of right this second, they don't have a number up just yet. And the reason for that, if you haven't already guessed it, if you've been living under a rock, Aaron Rodgers is still, I guess holding out would be the best word for it. Davante Adams is now holding out. The Saints don't have Drew Brees, and they're not really even saying who their starting quarterback is going to be. Michael Thomas just announced he's going to be out for a little while, recovering from an injury. So there's not a lot of information yet on this game, on the players, on really much of anything other than who the coaches are. And that's not enough for them to lay up a line. That being said, though, before this came out, going back to when the numbers first came out for all these games in Week 1, the Packers were 3-point dogs. It was Packers plus 3, and that has, again, obviously been taken down. That being said, though, I don't think that line is going to change very much. I don't think we have enough to flip it to where it would be like the Saints plus 3. It's probably going to be more of like a Saints -1, Saints -2, somewhere in there. Maybe a pick 'em, depending on where the money goes and how early you get to it. That being said, though, I like the Packers regardless of what number they give us here. If they are getting 3 points, great. You're grabbing the key number. If not, I just find they're probably going to win outright. But the Saints are actually only covering 33% of the time at home, and that was with Drew Brees. So I can't imagine that being much better with whoever they put back there at quarterback. They did lose Jared Cook, but they also lost Emmanuel Sanders, and their depth at receiver is it's getting decimated by the day. Now they're going to be missing Michael Thomas. It's not good, guys. They're also traditionally really bad at opening the season. I know I've covered this before, and you go back and watch other videos, hear me talk about it, how they're not good. Sean Payton is not good at getting these first games going and kind of, starting with the hit the ground running kind of mentality. He usually likes to build things up and wait for his opponents to show their hand a little bit more, and he uses those analytics. So this first game, I don't see them winning at all, honestly, but if they do, I don't see them covering. Also, though, Sean Payton is not good against playing against quarterbacks he doesn't have a lot of film on. So if you remember last year, they played against the Eagles, and Jalen Hurts just ran all over them. They just could not do anything, and it ended up being close. I believe they lost just by a field goal. But like I was saying, the Eagles just kind of had their way with them, and the Saints could not come up with a defensive plan to stop it. And to me, that goes back to just Sean Payton not being able to prepare well when he doesn't have the analytics and the numbers behind him. He's one of those guys who really likes to plan and prepare and take advantage of what his opponent's giving him. So that's going to hurt him. So even if Jordan Love ends up being the starting quarterback, I think the Packers are still going to have the upper hand, just in the fact that the Saints aren't going to really be able to prepare for them. That being said, though, one last pick here with the Saints, or one last tidbit. So the Saints are in for huge regression, regardless of which quarterback they go with. They had one of the best outcomes last year, even with Drew Brees getting hurt. It's just a lot of their stuff, like their touchdown rates, their efficiency rates, their one-score win rates, really everything about their team. It was great for them last year, but odds say it's going to regress this year. So all those things together lead me to just not really trust the Saints. And even if you don't want to take the Packers, like I said, for me, this is just a lean right now because there is no actual line out on this. It could be totally different. If it's like a pick 'em or if it's Packers -1, I'm not going to lay it. But this is, to me, a strong lean that I could see going one way or the other with. As far as the Packers are concerned, though, one other note on that one, and that is the season openers. So Matt LaFleur has had 2 season openers so far. In 2019, he won by a touchdown. And if you remember that game, it was a terrible game. It was like one of the worst season openers I've seen in a long time. And it was the Packers versus the Bears, and it was one of those 10-3 games, and it literally was 10-3 with the Packers winning by a touchdown. And I remember watching that game and having guys on my fantasy team and just being like so bored with the entire game, even with fantasy players involved. But that was really the first game under Matt LaFleur. After that, they went in 2020. They had a more decisive win over the Vikings, who actually ended up the score ended up being 43-34. The Vikings obviously last year had a good showing last year, and the Packers were able to really have their way with them and put up this huge offensive performance. Whereas this year, I think the Saints are kind of in the same boat that the Vikings were last year. They don't have a lot going on for them. Aside from Alvin Kamara, last year the Vikings had Dalvin Cook. They had an older Adam Thielen who just wasn't performing at what he used to. That was Justin Jefferson's first game in the NFL, so they just didn't have a lot else besides Dalvin Cook going for them that first game, and the Packers were able to kind of contain him at least as much as you can, right? He's still Dalvin Cook. But that all being said, the Packers should just be able to get away with this win here. I'm not saying that they're going to destroy them, and again, this is also going to be dependent upon what Aaron Rodgers does and what Davante Adams does, and any injury issues between now and then. And then also, it's going to really, not that it's going to impact my stance one way or the other, but it's going to impact the number as far as who the Saints announce as their starting quarterback for this game. I do believe if they put Taysom Hill, you're probably looking at like a Saints -1, -1.5. If they put Jameis Winston, you're probably going to start with a Saints -3 or Saints -2.5, somewhere a little bit of a higher line. And I think that's mainly because Jameis is going to get more love from your general public than somebody like Taysom Hill would, whether that's right or wrong. So that being said, guys, that is my lean. You really can't take any action on that game if you wanted to right now. But when it does come out, assuming the line is where we want it to be, Packers +3 or Packers +2.5-ish, somewhere around there, I'm totally okay with that. I would not hate that one bit. And then, obviously, the Ravens, I want to smash that as soon as we get closer to the game time coming up. I don't want to be laying my money out there for weeks and weeks and weeks with no return in sight. So, hopefully this is informative. Hopefully you guys learned something. Hopefully one of these picks is something you want to go with come week 1. Have a great day.